and welcome back to another episode of Patriarchy Principles, the podcast where we dive deep into the intersection of faith, family, and leadership. Designed with fathers in mind, we aim to shed light on the principles that guide us in protecting and providing for our families, not just spiritually, but in every aspect of life. Grounded in Christian values, we explore what it means to lead with integrity, responsibility, and purpose in today's complex world. I'm your host, Jay, and today I have an extraordinary guest whose journey embodies resilience, determination, and the pursuit of balanced living. Richard is a 30-year seasoned entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaker, and coach. After reaching the pinnacle, they're close, of success, Richard faced a catastrophic loss during the 2008-2009 financial crisis, losing everything, including his home, while supporting a wife and 6 children under the age of 4. So you can only imagine the stress during that time as you're hearing the story for a little bit. As a former U.S. Marine, champion boxer, black belt, and internationally recognized steel sculptor, words are hard today, Richard is no stranger to discipline and perseverance. He took on the challenge of understanding why he failed so drastically and began the hard work of rebuilding his life. Through the process, he discovered the importance of balancing the 5 most critical areas of life: faith, family, finances, fitness, and friendship, the 5 F's. Richard documented his journey and the lessons learned in his best-selling book, Escape the Owner Prison, where he provides strategies for business owners to scale, regain control, and fast-track growth while loving life. His mission is to help 10,000 small businesses transform not only their operations, but also the lives of their employees, families, and communities. In today's episode, we'll explore Richard's remarkable story, the concept of escaping the owner prison, and how we can apply these principles to create freedom, profit, and impact in our own lives. So without further ado, Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited. It should be an amazing conversation. So Richard, your journey is both harrowing and inspiring. From experiencing catastrophic loss to rebuilding a successful life centered around balance and purpose, you've been through it all. Can you share with us how these experiences have shaped you, and go a little bit deeper into some of these aspects of the story that have shaped you to who you are today and what motivated you to help others do the same?
Yeah, you bet, Jay. So yeah, it was about the first 20 years of my business going well, becoming really well known, best at what I did. I started the sculpture thing that became internationally recognized. I was doing world-class exhibits and just really doing well on the outside. Right? Married, and then we had 6 kids in like 4 years. That was really great. Things are going, but then the collapse came in 08, 09, and things happened pretty fast from that point. It was like November 5th of 2008. I lost $500,000 on that day, and it just kept going from there, right? So by early 09, we're basically going to have to end business, right? So I didn't have to. I knew it was coming, that we weren't going to make it. Okay. I'm looking like, wow, I think this is really over. And the big thing, Jay, is I kind of had this epiphany one morning. I woke up and I was thinking about my 6 little kids. I come home, they love me, they want to jump in, they want to be with you, they want to do all this stuff. And one day I was leaving in my truck out the driveway. My 4-year-old's chasing me down the driveway crying because I'm leaving. And I'm starting to think like, what am I doing? I am putting business first over everything. You got to succeed, got to be number one. And I was, right? And I was being all this stuff. But the problem was I'm thinking about my kids. I go, more is caught than taught when it comes down to kids, right? So you can tell them whatever you want, but they're really just watching what you do. Okay. So I just that morning I said, if I stay on this path, I'm actually going to ruin my children's lives. They're going to have broken marriages, failed relationships. Maybe they'll be good at business, but everything in their life, everything else will be trash. And God gave me that window to see that like down the road. Right? These kids, my oldest was 4. But I'm like, wow. So I literally got out of bed. I went to the office and we shut the business down. I said, we're losing this. I'm going to lose my house anyways, but like we're done today. There's no more saving this. And I realized, I don't want to do what I've been doing. Okay, so I'm a kind of all or nothing guy. So I didn't go start another water feature business. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wasn't going to do that because what I realized, Jay, was my identity was my business. Okay, so totally misplaced, but I became what I did, as a lot of people do, a lot of men do, right? What's the first thing we ask them when we meet them? What do you do? right? It's always that, what do you do for a job kind of question. And it really ties our identity to it. I even had a little bonfire in the backyard at my old house, and I burned all my uniforms. I'm like on video. I'm like burning this. I go, I'm never going to let this control me again. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to do. We had to relocate. We moved to another state, had to try to start over, and everything was really difficult. I mean, you go from all I had to nothing basically overnight. That's a challenge. We kind of figured it out. And I did figure it out, got going, opened another business, opened a gym, started training people, scaled that, opened a construction company, did that. So I'm doing pretty well again, right? But I'm understanding how to run a business now and do things properly so I have balance and it's not work all the time. It's not all dependent on me. So I kind of restructured everything that way. Then people started asking me how I did it. Right. Well, how did you go from all that to nothing back to this? And so I started helping them, which turned into my coaching business. Right. So now it's Sharpen the Spirit Coaching. It was Escape the Owner Prison. I wrote my best-selling book about my story and how to do this properly. And I built an academy around that, started training people and turned that into a business. A few iterations later, here we are with Sharpen the Spirit Coaching. And that probably brings us up to speed for the most part. That's the high-level view, Jay.
Dang, I love high-level views. I like low-level views too. Low-level views are cool too. Man, so what a story from great to not great to rebuilding and refining yourself. And so that defining moment, it sounds like, was as you're leaving and your 4-year-old comes, crying and running after you. You're leaving, hit you like a pile of bricks. It sounds like I need to make some changes.
Yeah. You really, and fortunately, like I said, I'm blessed to have that, to be able to see that then and not just keep going, because as I work with all these businesses, Jay, it's all the same patterns. They're doing all the stuff I did, they're doing it all for their family, right? We have a business so we can make more money and have profit and time with our family, and no one ever gets it. That's the problem, and they end up sacrificing their families to the business while they're doing it for their family. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of the irony of it all. You're working so hard trying to make this go. So you have this carrot that's way out there called freedom and impact and money, profit, right? But they never reach it. And 10 years goes by, 20 years goes by, and they don't ever get to that point. And that's where the estrangement becomes, right? Their kids, now they don't see their dad very often. They can't really have a vacation when he's not on the phone and he's never present. Same thing with his wife or husband, depending on what the role is there, right? So you look at it and just think, if you don't catch this early and make a change, be very, very intentional on this, you're going to go down that path that so many business owners do. And it's, again, they may eventually do well in business, but the cost is way too high. It's not worth it.
No, because you're always sacrificing something, right? It's hard to have your cake and eat it too. It's hard to have your cake and eat it too and struggle along the way. So when it comes to helping business owners balance their lives and escape the traps that hold them back, what's like the thing you have to help them with the most to gain that balance?
Well, it's really kind of a double-edged sword here. Okay. So you've got to first they have to be able to make money. They have to be profitable in their business. They can't just get by. They can't try to make payroll every week. That has to be effortless, right? They have to be making profit. And the second thing is they have to be systemized so the business can run itself. It can't be dependent on them. If it's dependent on me to open the door every day, I don't have a business. I have a job. And I can't ever take time away because nothing will get done. Or if I do, I have to call in every day to make sure the place hasn't burned down, right? Because I'm kind of the conductor of the orchestra. And without that, they don't have the direction. So we have to change the mindset of the business owner so we can create something that can run itself, which then becomes exponentially more valuable to a potential buyer down the road, right? Not to mention their own freedom, but they have an opportunity to actually sell what they've built for however many years. Because they can't buy you. So if you control the business, Jay, no one's going to buy you. You're not for sale, right? And that means your business isn't worth anything without you. You just may have some depreciating assets and that's it. So we really have to understand to build something attractive to a new buyer. They want to just give me a check. I'm out the door. They're in the door and no one knows it's sold. The business keeps running. They don't have to reinvent everything and try to fix it, right? And there's a place for that. There's a market for people who do that. But if you want to profit from the time you put in the business you built, that's what you need to do. Okay, really important.
I love that. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not a business guy, right? I work in mental health, so I work with clients directly, front facing. So I'm not like a business guy myself. I don't run a business, own a business, or
Right,
anything like that.
right.
But I think it's really interesting to talk business, because I know there's a lot of men out there who do own their business, who are part of the business, or are trying to start a business, who want to start a business, thinking about business, things like that. And so understanding that that balance, right? You have to have something that runs itself to operate, because it's just like you said. If you're not doing that, then you have a job, and it's only worth as much as you can put into it. But then I would assume that trap comes right then, is now you cross that line of business to job, to running the business, to working the job, to now you're doing double the work and with half the time. So
Yeah, what happens is, Jay, when you start a business, it's incredibly difficult. Okay, it's a lot of work, and there's no way around that. You're going to work a lot of hours. You're going to wear a lot of hats, right? Because you need to. That's how you get it off the launch pad. But then what happens is they work really hard for the first 2 years. And then next thing you know, 10 years goes by and they've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. That's why they're stuck. They can't get past that. They're still wearing too many hats. They haven't delegated. They haven't automated. They haven't eliminated the right things, right? They have this good business. So it's really important that people, that's the pattern, right? That's what I see all the time, to break free from that. Because if they don't have a plan to do that, because usually you just start a business because you're good at something and you start doing it and you get paid for it and like, oh, wow, this is great. You're making more money than you would at a job. But then you need employees and all the business stuff starts happening that you don't know anything about. And that's what drags you down. So you've got to flip your focus. You got to go out to the end and work your way backwards so you understand what's going to happen. And we get into the family aspect too, because you can't forget, most of us married kids, or we're going to be married and kids for young starting a business. Like, there has to be a place for that family. If you try to separate it completely, which looks like this, Jay, you come home and you're aggravated, you had a bad day, you maybe didn't close the deal, money's real tight, and your wife or maybe your kids ask you what's wrong, and you say, oh, you understand, it's just business. And that's the end of the conversation. Okay? That's the beginning of the end in a relationship in your family. If you can't share what's going on in your business, I don't mean they got to be a part of your business. What I mean is you're not able to, if they don't understand your mission, it's not, I'm just trying to grow a business. They don't know what that means. They need to specifically know what stage you're at in this growth period, right? So they can be your cheerleaders, so they can be supportive in what you're doing. But if you're going to keep your cards close to the vest and not share this and tell them they wouldn't understand, well, what are you actually saying to them? You don't value them. You don't value their opinion. Business is more important than their family. I'll think about this all that. We'll be on vacation. I'll be on the phone all the time because, it's business. What else? I'm the only one who can do it. And that's the cycle. And that's when that family starts to crumble. And it's horrible. It really is. I mean, you honestly, Jay, you think you're doing it for your family because you're so laser focused on being successful, making this thing work, that this is when you get totally out of balance, right? It becomes so one-sided. It's all about neglect. Everything else, friends, all the 5 F's, faith, family, finances, fitness, friendships. Okay. All of that goes away. People say, they tell you got to have work-life balance, but if your business is a mess, if it's a hot mess, doesn't run itself, you can't have those 5. Okay. Because your mind, you don't have the bandwidth to do it. You fix your business. Now we can talk about the 5 F's. Now you can get your balance, right? You can start to give yourself and your time and your mind to these other things, especially your faith, right? We need that to be number 1, above everything, above our family, above everything. But I'll tell you what, that slips in the placeholder real fast when you're in a business, because you're not focused on that anymore. You're trying to get through the next day, trying to get the next Friday, and you forget who you truly should be leaning on. And that's the Lord, right? That's where it really should be. And that's the big decline. It gets to be a steeper and steeper slope once that part goes.
Yeah, no, it's a slippery slope. And it makes sense. right? It makes sense that when you're on this trajectory in a business that you have to go backwards to forwards, right? You have to understand the ins and outs. That's why it's important to have good people, right? Important to have the right employees. I've ran other people's businesses for them. I've been a GM, general manager, several things, a high-level salary manager of big corporation stores and things like that. So I've been on that side of it. But you got to have good people. If not, then you're doing everything yourself. You can't really. You're all over the place, and things start to slip and go by the wayside, and especially in your own life. And the interesting part here is if you're running a business and you own a business, and even a 5-year-old asks you, well, how things are going, where are you at with it? What if that same 5-year-old was a little kid that came into your business? You're gonna tell them, right? You're gonna explain the business to them, right? But why aren't you doing it with your own child? Kind of thing. If you can do it with the random kid or random person or random other adult that comes in, why can't you do it with your wife and kid? Kind of thing, right? Shouldn't it be easier to do it with them?
You'd think so, right? You'd think so. So I'll give you a story. So after the collapse in 2009, we moved, relocated. Now I got a new business going, and I come home one day, roll up in the truck, and I get out, and one of my twin boys, he's about 8 at the time. I think he's about 8, and he's got 2 of these chairs set up in the yard, little fold out canvas chairs, like facing each other, and he goes, Dad, come here. I'm getting out of the truck, and I got stuff on my mind, right? And he goes, sit down. He sits down, and he leans forward on his chair, and he goes, so how are you doing? Just like that. That's what he asked me. I was like, I mean, it just was like, he had more of a focus on me than me, right? Like he really wanted to know because he could see how, and I'm like, well, it was kind of a tough day. So I started sharing with him, we're talking about business and stuff, with my 8-year-old, and he's 17, 18. I mean, the kid is on fire, doing great stuff. All my kids are, but it was that moment again where you get those little windows, those little moments where you're like, I'm doing something right because my son understands like what I'm going through. Because I changed from the old business, and they were little then, he didn't even know what was going on. But now he sees the new stuff and how I'm balancing it. But still, it's tough, right? That's family support right there from an 8-year-old. That's my 8-year-old like caring more about me than I think I did. So he's just saying that. So it was really a good thing to see. And I'm like, okay, well that kind of gets you back in line too. Go, okay, I'm doing some good things. My children get this now. You know what I mean? They understand because I share it with them. I take them to work. I took them to the gym. My daughter be there when I'm selling memberships and I'm training people, and they see all that stuff, and I have my employees and everything. That was great. Same with the other business. So now they were they didn't want to do the business, but I let them, because we homeschooled them and everything. So I had a lot of flexibility, but I was able to expose them to the world of business, which has really helped them see things a little bit differently, and it's been really good fruit. It's really, it's been really good produce, if you will,
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I think that's so important, right? We got to make sure if our kids see it, they're going to have a whole new perspective, right? And they're going to have a whole new world open up to them in those things. Because if our kids are exposed, and exposure is really important for children, right? You have to expose your kids to new things. If you're not exposing your kids to new things and you're just exposing them to the same 5 things all the time that they don't like, then there's going to be an issue there. But if you're exposing to a broader range of things, taking them with you to the things that you care about, that you're passionate about, that you're into, and sharing your interest with them, who knows, they may find something that they really love and enjoy in that process, whether it's at a gym or on a construction site or something, right? They may meet someone about something to learn something, or just the business side of it, right? Like for you, there's so many different aspects here, right? But speaking more generally, like involve your kids in the things that you're into as well. You have to be into the things that they're into. Like, yes, they're going to be into their thing, right? That kids are into. But you can also show them the things that you care about, things that you're passionate about, and share those passions with them and open up their world a little bit more to see, because then your guys' bond's going to grow, their world's going to grow a little bit, and you never know what could happen next from that and where that can lead to, what path that sets them toward.
Very, very true, because entrepreneurship, owning a business, I never I have no anticipation of them doing what I do. But I do want them to understand that if you want real freedom, if you want no limits, start a business. Find out whatever that's going to be. I don't know maybe it's a retail business, maybe it's a contracting business, maybe it's, a consulting business, whatever that might be. like understand like there's a real path to freedom there when it's done right. Right? You're going to be able to control your time, do what you want with your family if you do the business right. Right. So I always want them the beautiful thing for what I did, Jay, is they know that's an option. Not everyone's an entrepreneur. I get that too. They might be great at a job. They love it. They want to take that path. Awesome. You can make money in every level. Anything you do, you can make money at, make great money at it. Right. You can have your success and everything else. So, but most people aren't exposed to the entrepreneurial journey. They don't understand. It's not taught in any schools. It's not encouraged. You know, public school itself is designed to teach you to be a worker. Sit down 45 minutes, bell rings, get up, turn left again, sit down in the next classroom, let the bell ring, do the next thing, right? Do that all day with all kids your same age, so you get to know everyone thinks exactly the same. They all know the same things because they're all 10. Right? You're not in with a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old or a whatever, right? No one's helping each other up and down the scale. It's all segregated, right? It makes it very, very difficult to really learn early. So you kind of stay dumb. Dumb in the sense is you're not exposed, like you were saying earlier, to other things. Our children, because we homeschool them, before they were, I think 8 or 9, they've been across the country, up and down road trips, Route 66, done the whole thing. I mean, my wife's the master of field trips. I mean, they can have an adult conversation with you at 8, 9 years old. I mean, it's a very different thing because they're exposed differently, like you were talking about earlier. And it's really important that people understand that. Even if, now I'm not saying everyone should be homeschooling, but even if they're in the public school sector, and as a parent, as a father, you need to get them that. You need to have them hear viewpoints and have discussions with older men, older women. If you have girls, right? That's what I do. I bring them to our men's breakfast. I had a men's ministry at church. I bring them to it. Let's talk to these guys who are 30 and 50 and 70 and 80. Let's hear this stuff. Let's be around these God-fearing men who have all these life experience, and then they can converse with them and learn things, right? So it's really a different mindset from a father standpoint that you need to understand, right? I'm a protector. Okay. I'm a boxer. I'm a black belt. I'm a Marine. So I teach my kids how to shoot, how to fight, how to be a real protector, as the saying is a dangerous gentleman. That's what I teach my boys. I teach my girls how to do things too. Right. So that's what we want to be, right? We want to have the skills. We want to have the ability to defend, right. And protect our families under control, right? We're not violent, right? Until we have to be. And then we take care of business, right? And that's what we do. It's quite a role to be a father, and I have 4 boys and 2 girls. It's quite a role to be in if you take it serious. If you, like I said earlier, if you get obsessed with the business and it's all broken and you ignore the family or your job, you may have a job that, you're working 10, 12, 14 hours a day in to make that money, to have that house, to own those 2 cars and all that stuff. But at what expense? You're not able to spend time with your kids, or they're in school for 8, 9 hours and they do sports and they come home and do 2, 3 hours of homework. When do you actually get time to spend with them? Then they're in games on Saturday and you're traveling here. Like there's no time to breathe life into your kids, right? Not a chance to spend that do those hard things together. Get out and do that stuff and be around others who are doing similar things. So that, again, those are things I took very seriously, to bring along for my kids. Like that's what I wanted from life. I'd rather make less money and have that connection because that's internal, right? So if you look at Psalm 127, children are like arrows in the hand of a mighty warrior. Blesses a man whose quiver is full of them, right? But we have arrows, but then what? We have to launch these arrows. Arrows don't do any good in the quiver. You got to launch them. I have to prepare my children to be out in the world, right? To be God-fearing children and men and women as they grow and get out and share the gospel, do the thing, live the life they're supposed to live, right? That's a big deal. So there's a lot of work involved in that. That's just not, you don't take a class and become that, right?
Right.
There's a lot to do,
Yeah. No, that's all. Wow. First and foremost, if you guys missed any of that last, few minutes of Richard talking here, please go back and listen to all that again because that was just perfectly said. Starting with the homeschooling part. I agree. We were not telling everyone to homeschool, but we're not saying you shouldn't look into an alternative option to public education, right? There's some really great alternatives out there. If you are currently homeschooling and you're looking for a better math curriculum, hit me up. I do some work with Triad Math, really cool, practical, applicable math, where it's designed for post-elementary students. So if you have an advanced student or a post-elementary student you want to try, you can try it for 30 days for free. Over on Triad Math, really, really cool practical math, algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, and trigonometry that's applicable, that, sets kids up for ready to go into a technical career or ready to pass the exam, the math exam for the military, right? Or ready to pass the ACT or the SAT math exam, right? Because you learn the practical, applicable math that's being asked there, kind of thing. You don't learn all the quadratic equations, things like that. That's not important. So I think alternative education is something that's going to be more and more prevalent here in the next 4 or 5 years because of a larger push, a federal push of school choice. And I'm sure you're familiar with school choice. It's something that like Florida does and some of the Sun Belt states have, to where they allow parents, essentially to choose. This is how much your student would get paid. This is kind of like a dumbed down version for our listeners that don't know it, because I don't know it and the intricacies to explain at a high level. I only know how to explain it at a simple level, layman's tongue level. So basically, the state says, okay, this is kind of your allotment of funds for your student. What do you want to do with these? Do you want to send them to public school? Because then we'll, allocate the funds for your student to public school. Or do you want to homeschool them and then we'll allocate these funds in terms of tax rate kind of thing for you? Or do you want to send them to private school and we'll put them here? Do you want to go to a charter school, or do you want to go to a Christian school kind of thing? So you get options, right? And you get to choose, like school choice. Wow, imagine that. Parents get to choose what they feel is the best fit for their child, and for their family in terms of schooling. Wow, imagine that. Really cool concept. So really big proponent of those. But where was I going with all this? You mentioned, where the heck did I lost track of where I was going to go with this, Richard. But anyways, that's fine.
It's okay. I think it's really good, Jay, what you're talking about, because I'll give you a real world example. So my son, who's 20 now, he's in the Marine Corps. So he'll be in a year, like in a couple of days, he'll be in there for a year. So when he wanted to go in like a year and a half ago, a little longer than that, we go and take the ASVAB, like you said, right? You got to take the ASVAB. Well, we homeschooled the whole way through. So we don't do standardized testing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not part of homeschooling. So
Yeah.
standardized testing is a very different way of testing, right? From the math stuff. So he goes in, they take the initial ASVAB. He scores a 16. Okay. That's really low for those who don't know. Low. Okay. You're kind of not doing anything in the Marine Corps at 16. Okay. You got to get much higher, right? So, and it's like, well, it's okay. It's because you don't do standardized testing. So the Marine Corps recruiter is super cool. He says, listen, we'll do it. You want to come every day and take practice tests, do this, we'll help you. I'm like, we'll do that. And I'm going to get him a tutor. I have a friend who's great in math, really sharp kid, brought him over just a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
A month later, Jay, this is the beauty of, I'm telling you why homeschooling is so important, because my children know how to learn,
Mm-hmm.
right? 1 month later, he scored an 89
Ooh.
on the ASVAB. Okay. Just a month later. Okay.
And
2 hours of
30
tutoring.
days. So 30
Okay,
days,
and a
2
couple
hours a
things.
week.
Yep. No, 2 hours total.
Oh, 2 hours.
He
Oh my
he
God.
did his practicing during the week, 2 hours with a tutor. Okay,
Wow.
and then he practiced, right, and he's reading, doing that stuff, and boom, 89. So he could do whatever he wants in the Marine Corps. He's an MSG now. He's guarding embassies. He's doing all that stuff. So he's a really high level, really difficult class. MSG school is one of the toughest in the Marine Corps. He's just graduating that now. 65 kids were dropped from the MSG school. Right. So that's a big number. They started with 230, they're at 165 now. He's like 47th in the class. Right. So there's a lot to it, but it's just that, right? That adaptability. Now, he was a cross country runner. I taught him how to box. He was a boxer. We did all this stuff, right? So he's competitive. He's strong. He's sharp. But again, you just take that thing, like normally people look at someone who scored a 16. And it's like, well, he's just a dummy. No. Okay. That's what I mean. You can't, it's not one size fits all. That's the beauty of homeschooling. You individually instruct your children to their strengths and weaknesses, and you're able to tailor their learning. You can all learn the same thing at the same time, regardless of age, but you're doing it individually. It's really cool. And when you see that, and this is my little plug for homeschooling, when you see that and you're able to pour into those kids, it's amazing what they're able to do, how quickly they can learn. And you do this a couple hours a day. This is a 3-hour school day. Okay, then you're on to other stuff. So it's just, and now we did all 6 kids all the way through school, right? They're just finished. The last couple are finished high school this year, right? So it's been just amazing. And I'm just saying, like, this, we have to stop thinking like the world thinks. Okay, the norm. It's not that we can't. And I'll tell you, as Christ followers, I mean, we're called to do exactly that, right? We're that, where we're in the world but not of the world. So we're here to do different things and live a different life, and that's part of it. Don't get caught up in that system, if you will. So that's my little plug.
No, I love that. And it's so important, right? Like kids can all learn the thing and they can all do the thing, right? But it's so easily written off, especially with like the standardized testing model, the SAT, the ACT it's like you get one shot at this. You have to do great on this. If you don't do great on this, then that's going to be kind of your stigma and your reputation for the rest of your life, right? Or if you come out of high school with bad grades, it doesn't mean you're a bad student. It could have been you could have gotten bad grades because you were so incredibly bored and you understood everything. Because in every class of 30 students, there's going to be 5 that are probably way too advanced and way too catch on to everything way too quickly, and it's not challenging enough for them. There's going to be 5 who are really behind, and it's way too fast for them, and they can't keep up, so they can't digest it quick enough. And then there's going to be 20 or so that's going to be okay for it. Those 20 are going to be all right, right? And so then those students that maybe didn't do good on either side of the spectrum, the really high ones or the really low ones, those are going to be the students that are labeled as, well, if they don't do well, then they're not smart. They could be the most intelligent kid. They just learn a little bit slower, or maybe they just need to be challenged more, kind of thing.
They're the ones who become business owners.
Exactly.
Okay. All the A students work for all the C students. Okay. Like me, Jay, 1.7 was my grade point average out of high school. Okay. 1.7. I was not smart. Okay. Went in the core, scored super high in the ASVAB. Could do whatever. I was in the 90s on that.
Yeah.
Got in there, did what I want. Got out, started doing a business. Been doing a business for 35 years. Different businesses, growing, scaling, making. And this is just my own little fleshly self, but I made more on one sculpture commission than my teachers who were telling me I didn't know anything, I wasn't going to succeed and everything else. I made more on one commission than they would make in 10 years, 15 years. Okay. And I'm a guy with a 1.7 grade point average. Okay. I never took the SAT, ACT. Never took it. I stood in line at the community college with a check in my hand, my little schedule in line with everyone else. I'm looking around and said, nope, this ain't happening. I ripped it up and threw it in the trash when I joined the Marine Corps. I'm like, there's no way I'm going through school again. I just sucked because I thought you're supposed to. I thought you're supposed to, and that's how you get it. I'm like,
exactly.
And I'm like, nope, not for me. I didn't do it. I went a completely different route,
That's
and praise God I did.
Yeah, praise God. But that's the thing, right, Richard? That's the thing right there. You're hitting it right there. That's the way our kids are trained to think. Our kids are trained to think in a way of college. My oldest daughter's 7, right? So I have a lot of time to keep having this conversation. But I talk to her all the time. I'm like, college isn't your only option. She's like, well, how am I supposed to get a job then? I'm like, there's so many things you can do. There's so many things you can do. I'm like, she's like, so I can become a YouTuber? But I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe not, or an actress. I'm like, definitely. Drama club is kind of one of those things that's off the table because I feel like it's a little bit, for me, our values, my family values, my personal values as a dad. It's like drama club's a little bit too woke. Too much ideology is pushed within the drama club, so I don't want to expose them to that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let them do that. If you are letting your kids be exposed to drama club, I would really take a deep look at that. But I digress here. But that's the point, right? Public school, public education pushes our kids to all be the same. Pushes our kids to all do the same thing. Take the ACT, SAT, go to college, get a 4-year degree, spend hundreds of $1,000s, go into debt, go and work for someone else, working a $60,000, $70,000 a year job that's going to be fulfilling. But then if you really want to advance, you need to go back to school, get a master's. And then if you really want to advance further and make more money, then you have to go back to school again, get a doctorate kind of thing, yada, 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 yada. So you're always in education, you're always working, so you're always slogging along, right? So that's what our kids are taught to think because they're not given their options for early enough. That's why we're talking about exposure today, right? We're talking about that exposure because we have to expose our kids to the different things they can do. And they have to be, as fathers, I don't know if you've ever read Point Man, Richard. Have you ever read the book Point Man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Point Man, is a great example of this, right? To where they break down, what fathers used to do way back when. Is that like mothers would raise the daughters and the sons till they're about 7, 8, 9 years old or so, right? And then the fathers would start taking the boys. The girls would stay at home with mom, right, until they were of age to go and pick what they wanted to do, essentially. But then the boys would go with the dads, and they would go work in the field side by side, whatever the dad was doing. Dad was a blacksmith, son was a blacksmith until he got to choose otherwise, right? Until he became an adult, became a man. And then if that boy, let's say he was a son of a blacksmith, but he wanted to go be a farmer. Let's say I'm the blacksmith and you're the farmer, Richard. I'm giving this context for the listeners. Here's an example. I talk about this all the time here on this platform, but my son says, I want to go and learn how to be a farmer. I'm going to happy because there's no phones back there. I'm going to walk myself over to Richard's farm. I'm be like, hey, Richard, little Timmy, he wants to be a farmer. I want him to do an apprenticeship under you. And you're like, great, Jay, because my son, little Johnny, actually wants to do a blacksmith. So then we would trade that service, essentially. We would handshake deal, trade that service to where my boy goes with you, your boy comes with me, but then I'm overseeing his apprenticeship with you, and you're overseeing his apprenticeship with me. So we're all kind of commingling together all the time, which is really cool. Boys are commingling, sharing that experience, learning new things, teaching each other all these things. So it's really cool how these things used to happen. And then we lost that with public education, and so on and so forth. You have to read Point Man. I don't want to spoil it too much for you because it's such a phenomenal book. It's one of my favorite books. But yeah, we lost that. So
yeah, it's back 1600s, 1700s in this country, our literacy rate was higher than it is today.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
We had a higher literacy rate back then. So when people talk about schools and money, and remember, public school is really built to serve the Industrial Revolution. It was created to make workers for the elite.
Yeah, we
to
have to
get them
remember
in
that.
the factories and do this. That's all the whole. I mean, you could spend 10 shows talking about this stuff, but we have to just understand. You always have to go back to where it began. I remember we had a congressman talking to a homeschool group, and then he goes, "Oh, I believe someday we're going to have the first homeschool, president." He's being all, being a politician, right? Trying to blow smoke. And this kid raised his hand. He goes, "We already have." And he's like, he looks at him, he goes, the founding fathers. He's like, some of the most brilliant men in our country ever, just to this day. Okay, they didn't go to public school. Okay, so they were home educated. So it was, but it was cool to see like a 12-year-old say that to this congressman. That's what I'm talking about. 12-year-old public school is never going to say that. They just don't. They don't have the awareness. Yeah, it's awesome.
We need more of that. Like that should be so encouraged, right? That should be so encouraged. Like our children should be able to talk amongst themselves or with other people about faith, politics, gender ideology, and different ideologies, right? Like they should be able to have an age-appropriate conversation about these things versus that, well, my mom said, or my dad said, or my uncle says, or so-and-so says, or Teacher Susie or my math teacher says, kind of thing. Especially when they say a teacher says it, that's an issue in public education in itself. Like teachers are there to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. That science, technology, music, education, right? They're there to teach the subjects they're there to teach. They're not there to teach your children, my children, anything about their political views, their gender ideology views, anything like that. They're there to teach history, the right history. Unfortunately, here in Washington State, by October 1st, 2025, all public schools have to adopt an LGBTQ history part of the curriculum, which is absolute absurdity and insanity. Unfortunately for me, where I live here in Washington State, the school board is very conservative and is working tirelessly to fight against that curriculum that was signed in by our outgoing governor, Governor Jay Inslee. See you never. Last few years with him here in the state, but again, I digress a lot, Richard. I'm sorry, but no, that's a perfect example, right? We have to, our kids should be able to, like my 7-year-old should be able to talk to, let's say you have a 7-year-old, you don't, or a 7-year-old should be able to talk like, I go to church. This is where I go to church. This last week I learned about this, or I go to Awana Club. That's what we're learning at Awana Club, kind of thing. Right. These are really fun things for me. I enjoy them. And if your 7-year-old's never heard of it before, your 7-year-old should be, okay, what is that? That's interesting. You learn about God and you memorize what's a Bible verse, kind of thing. And then your daughter goes home to you, Dad, Jay, my friend, he said they go to Awana and the church and Bible verses. Like, what is that? And then you as a father should be able to, let me tell you a little bit more about that. We haven't really expressed that or, talk to you about that. And then that's a conversation, right? Versus, a lot of parents now who will come home after having that conversation, the kid will tell them that, like, oh my God, we don't believe faith, you can't be friends, blah, 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 kind of thing. It's our God bashing, faith bashing. And your first pillar, which I think is beautiful here, and I want to get into the pillars, the five areas here, for the last little bit of our conversation today. We're having a great conversation. Faith has to be number one, right? I was taught very early on, throughout my life, that it goes in the following order, and it's a linear order. I had people argue about this with me at work. I had an old supervisor. She's no longer with us at the company. That literally mocked this before in front of me. She's like, "So you're religious, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm religious. You know that." I was like, a question. She's like, "So what order do you like put things in?" I'm like, "Okay, well, the order I put things in is I put God first, right? God first, and then spouse second, and then it's kids third, and then it's ministry fourth, work fifth, and then the rest of the things kind of, fall and scatter after that in whatever order. But those are like top five for sure, right? So God first, my faith first, Jesus first, God first, all those things first, right? Then it's my wife, and then it's my kid, and that's where she had the issue because I wasn't putting my kids before my spouse. Even though I explained to her,
Right. Yep.
I'm like, well, and she's a single mother who was married to a man and now is with a woman. So she self-identifies as queer. That's how she identified. So that's something that I don't understand in itself, how you go from being with a man, having children, and then identify as queer and things like that. Like trauma and things like that, things happen, right? But anyways, it is what it is. That's neither here nor there. Happy for no judgment. Do you live your life? Still love you just the same. But then, I explained it to her. I'm like, well, the wife is going to be there after. The wife was there before. She's going to be there after. And so that relationship is most important because that's the relationship that the kids are learning to build their foundation on, right? Like they're getting their bags of concrete from us, right? We're giving them the bags of concrete essentially. They're building their own foundation. We give them the concrete, and then the things that they learn and take from that is the water, right? To pour into that concrete, to mix it around and do the work, right? So we give them the tools they need, and they have to do the work, right? So I explained this to her, and then something happened with my kids, or something happened, I had to go, and something, she's like, "That's why you should put your kids first." I'm just like, oh my God, like she just, don't get it. You don't get it, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, here's the thing on that, because it is important. I do the same thing. It's God first, and then it's, we get in the family, and in family, it's I got me, my wife, and the kids. That's the order, because if my wife and I are having a conversation and one of my 8-year-old runs up and says, hey, Dad, Mom, can I do that? Whoa, hold on. Mom and I are having a conversation here. We'll be with you in a second. Just wait, let us finish, right? How to ask, because if you don't, you're creating little tyrants who they're number one. It's all about them. So when people don't get that I try to explain it that way. I'm like, there's just order. There's order in our family. Okay. God is a God of order. God is a God of systems. Okay. This is really important to understand. He created us this way for a reason. Then you get into the whole submission thing, and we talk about that, but what they don't understand. So that's a hard discussion to have with people, Ephesians 5 and stuff like that. But you really kind of just show them the order. Like, order is necessary to have a loving home.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone knows their place. I'm under God. I do everything as unto the Lord. Right? So I have to love my wife like Christ loved us, like Christ loves the church, right? That's how it be. So if my wife submits under me, it's literally a rank, right? When Paul talks about it in the New Testament, it's about rank. Submission is a rank. Like if I'm a sergeant and there's a general, well, guess who's in charge? It ain't me. Okay. And the lance corporal under me and the PFC under him and the private under him, it's just rank. Because there's order, right? We have to have order in the system. So I try to explain it that way to people, and then you get into the why. But most people can understand that there needs to be structure. There's hierarchy. Now women will, depending on what their viewpoint is, they think they should be in the lead, and this and that. You get all that mixed up, but that's not God's order. That's what I'm concerned with. I'm not concerned with what you think. Okay, I'm concerned what God thinks.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, if God has set this order, that's what I go with. Right. Yeah, you can, because you'll change next week and next month and next year. Okay, you'll be doing something. You're with a man today. You're with a woman tomorrow. Okay. Why would I take that advice from someone? Okay.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't truly believe in anything, so I can't, I'm not gonna adhere to that, to the anything goes standard, right? Because true love, Jay, is compassion with standards. Okay. They say love is love, and no, it's not.
Love
Because
has
if
gotten
I'm
so thrown
married,
around.
right, and if I'm married and my wife decides that she wants to see Bill and John and Jim on the side, is that love? What if she loves
No,
all three of them? Are we in polyamory now, or is this right? So it's not. There has to be standards,
right? And God
right?
didn't establish
Compassion with standards. That's
polyamory
real love.
as a standard. God didn't establish
That's
polyamory as
right.
a standard. He established Adam and then Eve,
Right.
and then Eve was made from
Yep.
his side, right? To be by his side. And he made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, not Eve and Eve, or kind of
Right.
thing. Like he made Adam
Right.
and Eve. Couldn't be clearer.
So
Couldn't be clearer.
yeah. Yeah. So redefining everything that's their goal, right? Redefine
Hmm.
everything and just and destroy
Yeah.
the family. Okay. The whole goal, and it's a communist goal, is to destroy the family. If you destroy the family, you can conquer. Okay. If you have the nuclear family, husband, wife, children, okay, that is the recipe for complete success in everything in life. If you have that, when you break that up, okay, and now you have angry kids and you have them in gangs and you have women that who brag that they're single mothers. That's now an identity. Remember I said my business was my identity? Single mothers do that too. They introduce themselves as single mothers. It's part of their title.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
part
my
of like
name's
their
Mary. I'm a
identity.
single mother. I'm a single mother. I'm just what? Like, and I'm just being real here,
No.
to
Yeah.
brag about that, to put that out. Like, what do you know what? Because all the studies show what it does to the family, whether it's a dad and their kids or a mom and their kids, when you don't have the full, the full complement, right? Husband, wife, children, and what that does to them long term. We have enough studies for decades and decades on what's happened with that. So it's again, I go back to the biblical definition, and that's what I hold to, because that's what real truth is. So that's my defining point.
No.
Wow.
I love that. No, Richard, you're spot on, man. And I can speak firsthand to that. Like I remember I was single for about 3 years after my divorce, right before I met my now wife and got married and everything. And I look back at that time. My wife and I, at the time of this recording, have been married for 8 months. For about when this comes out, we'll be married for about 9, almost 10 months, kind of thing. And I look back at the 3 years before this, and I'm like, wow, there was so much missing here. There was so much missing, just in the home, just in the day to day, just in the relationships. And my daughters would come to me for things, and I just, I couldn't provide for the same way that my wife for them the same way my wife can. Great example of this, and I was kind of razzing my wife a little bit about it, just a little bit. As husbands do, we razz our wife, and because she's my girl stepmom. And I was like, oh, you and the oldest you had a little mom moment. You had your first like real like breakdown like mom moment kind of thing. Where my daughter, I thought she was going into ask like going in our room. My wife was in there just relaxing for a minute, and my daughter goes in there just it's just like a week or a few days after she gets like an expander on her top jaw, the top of her mouth, and it's like really hurting, really bothering her, and she has like a headgear she has to wear at night and around the house with like rubber band stuff. She was just in so much pain. She was in discomfort, right? And all she wanted was she didn't want dad's love, because I was kind of telling her it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be all right, kind of like his dad do, like you're gonna be okay, it's gonna pass, it's gonna get easier, kind of thing. And then, but she was like looking for like a mother's love. She wanted a mother's comfort. So she tells me, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you going to my? I just want to ask her something. That's all. She already thought a cover story for dad. She's smart. She already had a cover story to tell me. She goes in there starting it as a question, but then she starts, to like talk to my wife, and she's like, it hurts so bad, and it's just I'm in so much pain, and like some time goes by, I'm doing something else, I'm doing dishes or something around the house, and I go in there, and they're just like my wife's holding her, and she's on like my daughter's like on the point of tears and just in so much like pain and discomfort and stuff, and she just wanted like a mother's comfort, right? And my wife was able to give that. That's something I would never be able to give her, right? Because it's different. Like
Right.
yes, I can comfort her,
Yeah,
but it's different when
it's
it comes from a mom. So
totally different. And it is that, because here's the deal. If we were identical, our wives were identical to us, one of us would not be necessary. right? We're not made to be the same. We don't provide the same things to our children. We have to have that balance. That's what it's all about. I mean, that's how God made us. And if you can't realize that, because again, 30, 40, 50 years now, it's been shown it's a failure. Okay. The woman only, the male, it's a failure, abject failure beyond, like, no one could have predicted it. Well, God could predict it. I mean, that's what he said it's thing, but everyone thought that this is going to be this. And it's like, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster, so you've got to understand that. Again, that's why when you love the Lord and you spend time in the Word and I want to raise my children with a biblical worldview. I'll give you
Absolutely.
a real quick. I know we're wrapping up. But I'll give you a
No,
real
we're
quick
good.
example. So we have a homeschool. We had a homeschool cross country team. Okay, 80 kids. 80 kids. Okay,
Dang, that's
homeschool kids
that's
running really good, right? It's a big one, right? Well, we'd have this banquet at the end of every year. Have a banquet at this park. Now, homeschool families, if you know anything about them, they usually have more than a couple kids.
yeah. They
They
gotta
have
go a
6,
whole
8,
got a
10
whole
kids.
gaggle of kids. Got a whole
Big
gaggle.
families, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have this banquet,
So I'm
and
getting
there's
that.
like 180 kids.
I'm getting
There's like 180, 200 kids.
like 10 families,
Yeah,
right? Like
but
10 families.
here's the deal. So yeah, I'm telling. No, I'm telling. We have 3 over, and you got like 30 kids, right? You got like 4 families over. You got 35 kids running around. So you got to be careful who you invite. You know, so but we had this huge banquet, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's got to be chaos." They go, "No, you should come sometime." You'll see like 200 kids in the park playing, all ages, right? I'm talking 2-year-olds to 18-year-olds
Yeah.
and older, right? We're the parents all up at the tables, hanging out, chatting with each other. All the kids help each other. The young one's crying, another older one comes, takes care of her. They never come to the parents. Like, you would not believe this was possible with that many kids in one
I
place.
believe that. No,
There's
I believe
no
it.
issues. People, I go, that's what it is, because they're built with respect and
Yeah.
honor, right? They're around each other. They're not separated all day at school with a bunch of other kids their own age. They have to deal in the family situation, right? They get it, and it's normal. And they're trained to raise children, so they're helping each other, right? The older's helping the younger, right? They already know this. This is just every day. And you get into situations like that, and it's just amazing. People would think it's just chaos, and it's exactly the opposite. My oldest, his best friend was homeschooled until high school. Then he was in high school. My son wasn't. And then his junior year, I think it was his junior year, his friend talked him into going to the public high school. So he went. He goes, I go, you can always try, man. It's always up to you. You can go. So he goes. He lasted 3 weeks. Okay. He goes home. He goes, that is a prison. He goes, it's the most depressing place I've ever been in my whole life. He goes, it is a prison. And the stuff that teachers are teaching, all this stuff. And he's just like, I'm out. I'm back home. And I'm
I'm
like,
out.
good
I'm
for
out of
you.
here. I'm
So, no,
done.
yeah, but that's what people don't realize it. They don't realize, kids don't, because they don't know any different, right?
Yeah, they don't
But you take
know
someone
that.
like that, like my son, you drop him in. He's like, how do you do this every day? He goes, this is insane, So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's just some of the differences, when you're able to connect with your children, and your children connect with their siblings, and they have this lasting relationship. I mean, it's just a tight bond. And we don't keep them, again, they're way more exposed than any other public school kid. They've been more places. They've talked to different people. They've learned more than those other kids ever will. Because the number one thing is, they don't get socialized. I go, yeah, your kids don't get socialized. They're in the same room all day with the same age kids. There's no socialization going on there. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I think it's such a great. That's so cool, and it's so cool, and it makes total sense. Like that park example that you were given, it makes sense because yes,
Right.
how they're raised, how
Right.
they're taught is the elders take care of the youngers, and if you see a baby crying or a little one crying or having a hard time, you help them. They have values. It's not that it's
That's right.
chaos. It's
Yep.
they have values. They have respect. They have manners. They know how to take care of each other. It's community. It's a tribe mentality, right? It's it's more
You,
tribal. It's
you,
more respectful, and all those things.
yeah. My wife taught me something with our first child. Okay. I'm like, they're crying, they're in the crib. We just got to let them cry, right? They got to cry. They got to get used to it. She looked at me. She's like, Yeah, you want to know what that teaches them? It teaches them no one gives a crap about them. That's what that teaches them. So no, when the kid cries, you go in there. And I'm telling you, like, I'm like, okay, she was so right. Like, our kids are, man, are they awesome. Because we didn't let them cry for an hour in bed. We went and handled it, comforted them, loved them, back to sleep. It worked. It's like all 6 of them. I'm like, she was so right. Because I would, just like I wanted that when my kids did something wrong, I wanted to thrash them in the sandpit. Make them do Benson thrust, burpees, push-ups, take them out the sandpit, punish them with extra. And then she's like, yeah, we're not doing that. I'm like, And I started thinking, I go, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what that's going to do? That's going to make them hate fitness. If I punish them with exercise, what am I teaching them? That's a punishment. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, she saved me. Like, she saved my kids. Good. You're right. I'm not going to do that. So now all my kids love to work out. They do all this stuff, so it's good. But I could have, that's why it's not just me. Without my wife, can you imagine the stupid that I would do with my kids?
Well,
Right?
I can tell
Just
you,
left to my own.
I can tell you firsthand. I was left to my own devices for 3 years, man, and you do a lot of stupid, even though you don't
Right?
mean to. It's just like you're saying.
That's right.
Men and women are different. There is the when the welfare state was created, when how that was all marketed, and how it was marketed in different communities, especially the African American communities.
Oh yeah.
That, and I work with. And fast forward to today, I work with a lot of single mothers, and I have not met a single mother that I've interacted with that has not said something along the lines is, I wish they had more male influences. I wish they had people, a dad, uncles, grandpas, someone who they were like really close to that was a strong male influence that they got to interact with every single day. Yes, they have uncles that they see every couple of weeks, or grandpas that they see every sporadically, a couple times a week maybe, kind of thing. But there's no one there every day, and I wish there was someone there every day to like help and guide them, because there's things that they can teach him that I can't teach them. There's conversations that they can have with him that I can't have with him. And so there's big differences lacking there. And as a dad that was single for 3 years, there's a lot of things that I wasn't able to provide for my girls when they were with me, right? And there's a lot of things that I probably messed them up in a lot of different ways. Especially because at the time of my divorce, my youngest was 4 months old, right? 5 months old. And so I'm trying to raise like a baby and like essentially a preschooler. And I'm like, I don't know what the F I'm doing. Like, this doesn't make no sense. I know I got to take one here. I got to take one here. I got to do this. I got to do this. Got to do this. Got to do this. I got to feed them, kind of thing. And I was like, I'm lacking. Like, I was so lacking. And that's when I wasn't really having a strong, faithful walk with Christ yet. I hadn't really rededicated, my heart and my life to Him, and serving and fulfilling that purpose. So I was lacking. I wasn't asking. I wasn't getting help. I wasn't doing any of the things that I now preach on this platform. And I can admit that first and foremost. I'll admit that every single day of the week. There are things that I've fucked up, in a lot of different ways. And that's okay, because we all do it. We all F up every single day. That's the beauty of grace. That's the beauty of the gospel. That's the beauty of Christ. And He, that's why He paid for us on the cross to be able to make mistakes and get forgiveness and to grow and to learn and develop and all those things. And so it's super important. I guess the only two areas we didn't hit on here were fitness and friendship. So we can hit on those real quick. Fitness, so important. Your overall health.
It's critical. And again, you don't have to be, Arnold Schwarzenegger or, whatever. I mean, you just have to be active. You have to be healthy. And fitness, the other, the second half, probably the more important half, is nutrition, right? Mm-hmm. So really about what you're putting in your body is really important. That's your fuel. That's what keeps you sharp. That's what gives you the energy to perform and do what you have to do all day, every day, with your family, without your family, in your business, in your job. Really important to do some aspect of that. Everyone's got their thing. I love it. I do it every day. And that's great. The friendship part, Jay, is another thing. And I'm, my standing joke with my kids is, with all my friends, if I lost 3 fingers on one hand, they'd all still fit on my hand. Okay. I don't have a lot of like what I call trench buddies, guys who really got my 6, right? That I can totally confide in. No matter what happens, they're going to be there. So that circle's pretty small. I have other circles where I know people. I know a lot of people and stuff like that. But your friendship circle has to be strengthened. It's like anything else. Anything you don't pay attention to tends to go away. Don't pay attention to your money. It'll disappear. Don't pay attention to your wife. She'll go away. Mm-hmm. Don't pay attention to your friends. They'll go away. Right. So going back to the beginning with a business that's all messed up, you can't do those F's, right? You can't get in those 5 F's. That includes your friends. Your friends are all gone. You got to start all over. So we want to nurture those friendships because they matter. You don't put them above everything else, but they have a place. But there's a percentage of your time that you need to invest into that, into quality friends, quality. So I tell my kids, it's only about quality, it ain't about quantity.
Mhm.
You have no friends on Facebook, okay, and Instagram. Those aren't your friends, okay? If they haven't been in your home, they ain't your friends. Okay, that's what I tell them. If they haven't been here sitting at this counter, okay, chatting with us, chatting with you, like they aren't your friends. You might know them or know of them, but they're not your friends. So I really try to quantify what a real friend is. I mean,
That's
again, I like a lot of people. I've met some, I know what great people, but they have to, there's that nothing being in the presence of each other. Nothing replaces that.
Yeah. No, I never thought of it that way. And you're right. A lot of times at schools, teachers just say, well, your friend over there, or go help your friend over there, go help your friend over there. It's like, I don't know that person. That's not my friend. Friends are the people that you hang out with outside of school, outside of work, kind of thing. Like those are friends. And I like that perspective there. Like friends, you don't go to every single one of your classmates' birthday parties, right? If we're thinking for kids, they don't go to every single one of their classmates' birthday parties. They go to one or maybe two or three. Those are their friends. Like those are who they see as friends, right? They don't go to all the birthday. They don't get invited to all the birthday parties because the one kid doesn't see them as a close enough friend to be invited. The ones that invite you are your friends. The ones that treat you kindly, that you spend the most time with inside school or maybe outside of school, that you always find yourself gravitating toward. Like those are better friends, right? Those are better friendships. And especially the ones that you go to each other's houses, right? You go to each other's houses, you spend time together outside of all of those structured those times. Those are your real friends. And I never thought of it that way. And I think that's a great way to put it, and a great perspective there. The ones the ones you break
Yeah.
bread with, essentially.
Yeah, the other day where I'm working out, I brought my daughter, she's 16, almost 17. She's at the gym working out, and I see this guy who's like, all of a sudden they're like hanging out and they're running, and he's kind of showing her something on the bench, and I'm looking, and I'm still boxing, right? I'm still hitting the bag. I do all this stuff. So most people know me there, right? So I'm over doing some ab work, and I'm looking, and he walks over with my daughter, introduces himself and everything else. And I said, okay, nice to meet you. I said, so I'm just going to be straight with you. Ain't nothing happening here. You understand? She's not available. You're not going to be dating her. None of this stuff, He goes, yeah, I know. My dad tells me. I goes, because I told her, I said, there's no such thing as guy and girl friends. Okay. It doesn't exist. I go, it doesn't exist. Okay. And he goes, I know, my dad tells me the same thing. I go, and yet you're trying to pick up my daughter.
Yeah, here you are.
Okay. Or telling me you're just friends and going to help her. Like I said, so just let's be an honorable man here. Okay. Like she's off your team. Got it? He's like, I totally understand. Okay, go away now. Okay. I'm like, I just tell him because I've had to do that a number of times because kids, I mean, boys are boys. They're going to do what they
Yeah.
do. But I set the rule. I set the rule. It doesn't mean she can't like guys, but at 16, she's not dating. Right? You don't get that time. You don't get to do that. I don't care what the world does. You're not, especially again, individually. My one daughter was a little more mature at that time. She's not as mature, right? So you got to protect them. That's my protector. I've literally had to tell one guy, he was really arguing with me that he's going to, whatever, see my daughter. I said, fella, I'm like, I know you. He goes, well, I'm going to disagree with you. I go, dude, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, here's what you need to do. And he had his own issues. He was like in the group home. Then he goes, well, I'm getting my own apartment and everything else. And this is what I told him. I go, well, here's what you're going to do, my man. I said, you're going to get that apartment. And he works at Culver's where my daughter works. It's like the fast food restaurant. I go, and then the next thing you're going to do is go get a man's job. You're going to quit that job. That's for children. Okay. You're like 17 and a half, like almost 18. Go get a man's job. Okay. Start working like a man. And the next thing you do is you better get right with God. You better strengthen your relationship with him so you can become a man that a God-fearing woman will want to be with. Because you're not that right now. Okay. And my daughter's got her own set of issues. And I'm telling you, if I see you talking to her again, sitting next to her, I go, I will end you. Do you understand? I mean, he's like my size. I mean, he's thinner, but and I'm like, do you understand? He's like, Well, yes. I go, well, okay, maybe I won't like end you, but think of within an inch of your life. Okay. Because this is my daughter. So you better take heed like what I'm telling you. And this is in church. I'm telling them this. Okay. So they have a youth thing, and it's on the other side of the building. So I go and I go back there. There's these glass doors. I'm looking, and he's sitting like 4 chairs away from my daughter, right? Which is good. There's a big space. And I'm just standing back there. And all of a sudden he turns around and looks back, and there I am. He's like, and he just kind of turns back. I'm just like, just no, I'm here. So he's like, so, but I'm not saying like that's the thing to do for everyone, but there's a point where I think as fathers, we have to understand who and what we're protecting in our family. Okay. It matters. Okay. If someone was trying to hit on my wife, if I saw that, stand by. Okay. I'll be talking to him. Okay. I'm not going to talk to my wife. I'm going to talk to him. Okay. Now I'm going to end it there. Okay. So just, we have that role. We have that role, Jay, right? We have that role that we have to protect, but we have to be there. We have to see, we have to be present to even see that stuff. Because this crazy stuff happens. You go, how did that happen? Because we weren't paying attention. I mean, I've got other stories, where I didn't do such a good job, where no one's perfect, but I try to do my best.
Yeah, no, and that's what we can do, right? We have to protect our vulnerable, right? I'm not sure where it's at in the Bible, but I want to say it's in Luke. Maybe it's not in Luke, but anyways, where our wives essentially, and then I also apply this to like our daughters as well. They're like a precious vase, right? They're is it a vase? I'm pretty sure it's a vase. I'm not a scriptorian. I don't quote scripture very, very well at all. I can tell you the generals and things like that, but that's more something I'm working on too. But basically our women, our wives are these precious vase, right? And we have to treat them with an incredible delicacy, right? We have to treat them as so delicate because they can break so easily. Right, and they're so valuable, they're so precious, like a precious crystal vase, essentially, and so our daughters, right? We have to protect those precious crystal vases from men, right? We're men, we're dads, we're fathers, we're protecting them from ourselves, because we know how men are, especially teenage boys, young adult men, right? They think they are the hottiest hot stuff, and we understand that. We were all that age once, so we get it, right? We get it. And so we have to protect our daughters from that. Right, until that they can discern, they have that level of discernment on their own to be able to discern that. And that's why it's also important to have really strong relationships, especially with our daughters. Our relationships that are affectionate, that are, protecting, that are loving, that are kind, that are, I don't love this cat sometimes, but that are all those things, right? So that then they know, they have an example of, this is how I'm supposed to be treated, this is the level that I'm expecting, to where versus the boy from Culver's who gives me a little bit of attention, that's nothing. Kind of, you're not anything until they can grow into that level of discernment, and that's the kind of relationship we have to have with our daughters. At the same time, to make sure that they understand. So,
and it's never too early to start that.
No,
like that begins immediately. It's all the time. You are there to protect. You're the prophet. You're the priest. You're the protector, right? You're these things, the provider. Those are the things you are in your family. Okay. And you have to live to that standard. All right. You got to set it and do your best. You're not going to be perfect, but you have to understand, like, these are my obligations to my family. I'm committed. I've made a covenant between my wife, me, and the Lord. Okay. There's a 3-way covenant when you get married. Okay. Don't forget that. People forget that God's the tip of that, right? And you've made a covenant to make this, and then he's given you these children. Okay. Now you've got that responsibility. Okay. And Emerson, the writer, had the great quote. He said, when you have children, your life is no longer your own. Like, just take that. When you have children, your life is no longer your own. All the fun you used to have and do what you wanted when you wanted, that's all over. That season is over. Okay? And then on you go. Now my kids are 18 and 19 and 20. Okay, they're going. I'm like, wow, that a new season's happening. One's in the Marine Corps, another one's moved out. The other, I'm like, this is good. No, but for 20 years, it's been for them. Protected them. I've raised them. We've taught them. We've schooled them. We've done all this stuff. Now it's time for them to go. right? And I heard it was Laird Hamilton, I think, he said, as a Christian father, people are like, well, why do you know like you did a good job raising your children? He goes, well, they just leave. He goes, they're not holding on. He goes, they just go out to the world and they get going. They get jobs and I'm like, dang, that's what all my kids are doing. This is awesome. So I gotta think that's what they're doing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna move. Okay, they're good. They go in the Marine Corps and they move, and they're working and they're making great money. I'm like, wow, we kind of did okay. Our kids are going to be all right. They're doing really well, way superior to the other kids their age. So it's just I'm grateful to God. Okay, that's what it all comes down to. They just gave us again the wisdom, that insight, what I saw in that epiphany 15 years ago, 16 years ago, that like, what's going to happen if I stayed my course, and I changed everything, redirected everything. And I wasn't even a believer then. I wasn't. I mean, I was a Christian. I called it a CNO. I was a Christian in name only. That's what I was. I kind of went to church, but I didn't even know what being saved was. It was just that thing that I'm like, I just thought you go to church because the pastor in this 2,000 person church never talked about being saved, never had an altar call, never went to do any of that. I'm like, what is that all about? I look back like, how can you? I said, do you know the speaking of standards, you know what a pastor is held to? Way higher than someone like you or I.
Mhm.
And you're not truly preaching the gospel. You're not calling people to Christ. I'm like, oh man, I hope I hope someone squares you away. I'm not around there anymore, but I'm just there doing my Christian thing. I had no idea what it really was. And then once I found out, that was a major shift. Right. So it's a good thing. But again, we could go on forever.
You could, and that's the beauty of like having conversations like this, is that we get to go on and on and on for however long we want to go on for.
That's right. That's right.
This is about the part of the podcast where I ask you if there's any other key points you want to hit on. That last like point you hit on there was absolutely wonderful, about how we made that covenant with our wives and with God, and He gave us these children, and He's given us that responsibility. Like, our children are from Him to take care of, to raise on this earth. Jesus was given to Joseph and Mary to raise on this earth. Jesus was given to Joseph as an earthly father, and Joseph never forgot that I am just his earthly father. I am not his heavenly father. I am his earthly father, here to raise him, guide him, and lead him along the path here. He's Jesus, yes, I get that, but I'm also his father here on earth to raise him and to guide him and to give him direction and to make sure he does all the things he's supposed to do. And I think that's a very powerful thing as well to remember. Like, our babies are a bunch of baby Jesuses, essentially, a bunch of little babies who are given to us from God to raise and to put along this path. Now, all of our kids are not going to be Jesus, or maybe anything close to Jesus. Maybe some of them are going to be a little bit closer to Satan because they're a little bit more wild and crazy. That's a joke, guys. That's a joke. I promise that's a joke. But something really important to remember there. So, is there anything else that you like? Any other piece of advice? Any thoughts that you just want to leave to our listeners here before I wrap us up?
I just think, again, just keep the focus on your family. If you have a family, or if you're looking to get a family, say there's someone who's single, male or female, and you're a believer. One thing you must, you never want to be unequally yoked, which means you need to find another believer who you want to partner with. Okay, if you're going to get married, that's where it's going to go. Okay, so you got to make sure that you understand what that really is, right? That you must have another God-fearing individual.
Yeah, no, for sure. 1 second. He was not supposed to be here. I don't have an appointment with him today, so I apologize for that if you're over on the YouTube. That was odd, first and foremost. Yeah, I don't record with him until tomorrow, but anyways, I digress here. No, I love that. Sorry about that distraction. I really apologize for that.
It's okay. It's okay.
But yes, you have to get equally yoked. You have to find someone that can increase your yoke, right? Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep.
You have to find someone that will challenge you, that will push you, that will hold you accountable in all these things.
Right.
And this is where I look straight into the camera and I give every person who's listening to this, watching this, hearing this, a call to action. If you are lacking, Richard and I talked a lot about one key thing throughout this podcast: faith, God, that relationship, having that as a cornerstone, foundational, keystone piece to everything that we're doing. God is it. God is the answer. God is everything to us, right? If you don't have that relationship, or if you're wanting to find that relationship, if you're wanting to have that relationship. Now, I'm not a pastor or anything, right? I'm not going to say this as fancy as a pastor would, but If you're lacking, James 1:5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally, who asks in faith, and then it goes on whatnot. But I implore you to pray, to ask, to find that faith, to do it. Because yes, you may be a great father already. You may be the best father, but you may also be feeling like, man, I wish there was something more. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I need more, right? This is your call. This is that wake up call for you. If you're able to get down through 100 or not 100, oh my gosh, an hour and 10, 15 minutes of this, right? And you got to this point, then this is for you. This is why you're here. I truly believe that. Right here, looking into it, I feel it. Get on your knees. You don't have to get on your knees, but bow your head, pray. Ask to feel the Spirit. Ask to feel that faith. Ask to be reformed, be renewed. Ask right now how you can be a better father, because God will tell you. He'll show you. If you want to know, He will show you. And if you're struggling with that, I invite you to find a local church, a local denomination, a local branch of faith to explore, to be a part of, to get to know in your day-to-day here. Very important to do that. I feel very strongly for that. So that's my message to you, to the fathers today. Yes. So that's my call to action for the fathers. Ask. A couple other things here that I do want to hit on. That opening beat that we heard. Now I get to do a couple things here, and then I'll close this out. I promise. We're almost there, Richard. First things first, I want to shout out Podbeat. That was who brought to us our opening beat of the podcast. Podbeat is a free service that anyone can download to turn any podcast they listen to into a musical experience. If you like to work out, if you like to run, anything like that, Richard, you have to keep a cadence, right? You have to keep a rhythm. Podbeat helps you do that with a variation of different music, things like that. It's great for those who work out, those who go to the gym, those who need to keep a cadence in some way, shape, or form. Or if you just want a little bit of music in your ears while you're listening to a podcast, great. Podbeat has you covered there, and also for audiobooks. Second, I want to invite all the men out there to go and check out the Mental app. You can download the Mental app and try it for free with getmental.com/youngdadpod. That's GETMENTAL.com/youngdadpod. YOUNGDADPOD. Super easy. It'll take you there. You'll do a little quiz. You'll get to try it out for 7 days. That includes the cold shower protocol. That includes some breathing exercises, some AI coaching, and just some really beautiful, amazing things that are by men for men. Really changing the game of men's mental health. It's the number one mental health app for men. At least I believe it is. It's rated that as well, according to the App Store. And then, so those are my two pieces of business. Now I'm going to close this out. So Richard, thank you so much today for sharing your inspiring journey and invaluable insights with me today, with our listeners today. Your dedication to helping others escape the owner prison. We didn't even get to go into that part of it, but I think we kind of touched on it in general.
Yeah, I think so.
Is a wonderful thing. And your dedication to helping others escape the owner prison is wonderful. And achieve balance
thank you.
across
I
all areas
appreciate
of
it.
life
It's been
is
great.
truly commendable. For those interested in learning more about Richard's work, his book, Escape the Owner Prison, or his coaching program with Sharpen the Spear Coaching, I'll include the links in the show notes. And of course, thank you all for tuning into Patriarchy Principles. Remember, leadership starts at home and extends into every aspect of our lives. Let's strive to lead with purpose, balance our priorities, and make a positive impact on those around us. Until next time, stay steadfast in your faith, cherish your families, and continue to lead by example.